Another video. This is my 1974 Super Beetle that I'm totally restoring pretty much from scratch. In this video, I'll point out typical rust spots that you need to look for when you're buying one of these vintage Volkswagens. I like personally the Super Beetle. I know a lot of the enthusiasts don't like them, but I like the rides better. It has McPherson struts on the front. Rather than the big rack that's on the older Volkswagens. I think they started McPherson struts in '71, if I'm correct. Also like the looks of the curved windshield. This is a convertible, and this is my Tesla project here. So it's going to have Tesla S batteries in it. It'll have 4 in the rear, 3 in the front, and a Curtis AC50 motor in there. Since it's an AC motor, it'll be able to do regenerative braking. But pretty much just stripped it down. When I got it, it had 4 coats of paint on it, had some rust spots, sent it out, basically stripped it down, sent it out to media blast, and here's what I'm left with. The convertible top that was on it. The way Volkswagen does convertible tops, they have the top material, then they have padding, and then they have the headliner, so when you put it up, it looks real nice, kind of like a regular car, but it sucks when the vinyl top starts linking and the pad starts absorbing water, and it kind of rots things out. So anyway, stripped all that off and restored the mechanism, the convertible fold-up top, and it's all stripped, and did some pour 15, paint on rust 15 to seal it in really good, and plan on just putting the top material on, just kind of like a American car where you're not seeing padding and headlining and all that stuff. But apparently this car sat out for quite a while, started leaking into the body, but overall the rust wasn't too bad. But what I'll do is I'll point out the typical areas where you're going to see rust. All right, so the first rust spot you really need to look for, just about every Volkswagen, even when I see them parked in the parking lot at Home Depot or Lowe's or the grocery store, I look inside the fender well. And all the Volkswagens typically rust, especially the Super Beetles, rust right in here, right behind the front wheel. And you would think that that's from, tire kicking up stones and eating away the metal and that sort of thing. And that's actually not what's happening, is that the water gets in through the hood, the seal around the front hood, or as in English say, the bonnet, and the water tends to go down into the corner of the wheel well back in here, and when it goes down there, the construction of the Beetle, at least on the Super Beetle, and I've had probably 20 other Beetles. I used to restore these things when I was in high school in the 70s and flip them, and they typically all kind of I saw rust down in there, but it's like sandwiched metal. And there's like 3 layers of steel sandwiched together, and the water gets down there and just sits there and just eats it away. So that's rust from the inside out that occurs on both sides. So as you can see, this car has already been sandblasted, stripped, totally rebuilt right now. I did upgraded McPherson struts with gas shocks, and also JBugs is a really good, jbugs.com. Real good source for your VW replacement parts. And I got a dropped strut in the front so I can lower it down. I lowered this down about 2 inches because I don't like the looks of the Volkswagens. They always look like they're jacked up in the front, so I wanted a good stance to it. So that's all been replaced. All the bushings have been replaced with urethane. Got rid of the old rubber that was all rotted, and right there you see the urethane, the red. All the bushings, the interconnecting rod bushing, can't see it, it's up in there, and then also the sway bar, everything's been replaced with urethane. Also, I did a disc brake conversion in the front, if you can see it, up in there. You see the caliper, so I think it'll focus. So since I'm going to electric, with electric motor in the back, I figured I'd upgrade to disc brakes in the front. When you do that, make sure you get a new master cylinder that'll handle more volume than the traditional ones. See a lot of guys update their disc brakes in the front on Volkswagens, but they don't replace the master cylinder. The old ones don't have quite enough fluid to really push and make it work properly, so make sure you replace that. And again, on this side, you see the rest of the repair that's been done. So make sure you replace the master cylinder when you update the brakes to disc brakes in the front, so you have that extra volume. The other spot, and get down here and take a look, is that, you know, the Volkswagen Beetles, they have the running boards along the side. And what happens is all the dirt gets down in between the running board and the actual body of the car. And literally, you're going to get rust from the outside. And the old enamels, I guess, after a while broke down and the moisture started penetrating. So this car actually had rust all the way down through here, all the way down to this center section here where the running board bolts to the car. So that's all been chopped out and replaced, and roughly a 1-inch strip of steel was put all along there and re-welded back in. And as you can see on the convertible, different than the sedans, that you have this big beam across the bottom here on the convertibles on both sides with the jack. So also in the rear, rebuilt the rear end, all the bushings, and went to urethane, and also the urethane bump stop. Left the drums in the brake drums in the back, because this is going to be electric regenerative braking. It'll have a pressure sensor on the brake cylinder, kind of like how your brake lights work. It'll be tied in the motor controller, and actually the motor's going to help stop the rear, so there's really no need to go to disc brakes in the rear. Total rear end's been rebuilt, transmission's been out, all cleaned and painted, and new clutch cables and that sort of thing. That's all been redone, all new gas shocks on it. So pretty much this is going to be better than original. And then on the inside, your typical rust spots that you really need to look for when you're buying one is underneath the battery. And the lead acid battery, let me see a battery box I got here. I'm going to put a battery box underneath it for future. But usually the floor rots out right underneath that battery. And I've seen Volkswagens I've gotten had, you know, pieces of 2x6 spanning across it with rags, plugging a hole, trying to keep the mice out and that sort of thing. So when you're looking at a Volkswagen, make sure your first thing go through is those quarter wells up front behind the wheels in the front, and then also make sure you're looking at the floor pan. Now they do sell a floor plan that you could replace, chop out the original, put the new one in, and it's just chintzy 20 gauge steel. Nobody really makes a nice 18 gauge heavy duty, but it serves a purpose. So you can see this whole floor has been chopped out and replaced with a factory made replacement. So the other thing I like doing too on the Volkswagens is drilling a hole. And I don't know why from the factory they didn't drill holes in the floor, but you see I drilled a hole right there. And then I like drilling one up front right here. So if any water gets in, again, this is a convertible, maybe sedans don't have too much of an issue, but if any water gets in here, I can always pull off the carpet and then let it drain through the holes. And then you can see over on the other side, right in here, I had a punky spot with the metal, and I plasma cutted that out and made a nice patch panel with crimped edges to go replace that section right there. So other than that, it was pretty solid. The other thing I did too, and look at my YouTube channel, please subscribe, look at my other YouTubes I've got on my solar projects, my hot rods, got plenty of videos there for you, is I rebuilt the shift rod tube bushings and stuff. So there's a good video on the 74 Super Beetle. It's different than the older ones. You don't have an access plate in the front, but check out my other video, and I found a way of doing it without tearing the whole front end of the car off. So replaced the bushings, went with a urethane transmission nose connector there. That's real nice. And then I like upgrading to a new shifter, and this is an MP. MP makes a ton of stuff for Volkswagen's MP shifter, and I really like it. I've been using these guys for, back in the 70s I was buying some of that stuff, this type shifter. But it's a short through shifter, and then when you go into reverse, you don't have to cram down the shifter, which is hard sometimes, and sometimes it even pops out of gear. You basically just hold your hand down on there and get your finger and pull this up, and it puts it in reverse when you go to the left and then back. So anyway, that's it for that rebuild. The next project is, look at the spaghetti that I've got underneath here. That's from the factory. I mean, this is ridiculous how they did it back then. And then they used the old ceramic fuses. So here's the rat's nest from the factory. This is how Volkswagen did a 74 Super Beetle. So I'm going to chop that out, and it's all going to be replaced with a GM fuse block with blade fuses, and get rid of this snarly mess here. Okay, the next step is pull the dashboard out, and I have a brand new topper for the dashboard, and I'll restore the switches and everything. As long as I'm putting in a new wiring harness, I'll take the dash out and replace it. So here's what it looks like now with the dash torn out. I'll clean all that up and clean up the wiring, and the thing will be better than new.